This is Scott Fain, aka Make It Rain Fain, aka Brother Nature. And I'm here today learning a little bit about sourdough and getting a sourdough starter started with my good friend Dorothy Powell of Gingerbread Bakery. How are you doing today, Dorothy?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's stopped raining today, so I think the sun's about to come out soon. I can just feel it.
Right. It's exciting.
Well, first things first, I wanted to kind of pull out your bona fides. Like you work at the or you own the Gingerbread Bakery in Youngstown, and a lot of your products have a lot to do with sourdough, and that's kind of how we got started even doing this. So can you just tell us a little bit about that? Just what started your journey on sourdough as I finished getting set up.
Yeah. So with the sourdough journey, I kind of just jumped into it on a whim. Uh, I just kept seeing videos and videos of it, and I was like, how hard can it be to do this? So I just did it just to see what it was like. In the past, with any type of bread that I've made, I've always failed at, so I didn't have super high hopes. But the more I continued on the journey, the more my confidence grew. And there's just something, I guess, authentic about making something completely from scratch from stuff that Mother Nature provides instead of using man-made things. I liked that aspect of things a little bit better. And I actually did a whole lot better making sourdough bread than I actually do making the yeast bread.
Hmm, okay. Well, one of the things that you did before we set this whole thing up was you sent me this wonderful package of some dehydrated sourdough starter so that I could get a leg up as far as just start my own starter. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to open yours and get that one going, and then I'm also going to do one of my own from scratch, just from the flour and stuff that I have here. So that way you can see both of them. So because you send the sourdough starter out to people too, right? Like as
Yeah.
part of your service. Okay.
Yeah, and then what comes with the sourdough starter is that you get all my information, all the knowledge that I have. I will mentor you through the whole process if you need it.
Okay. Well, let me get started here, just opening up the package. Very well put together, I might say. Uh, so how do you revive dehydrated sour? How long does it last?
So as it's in its dehydrated form, it will last forever as long as it's in its dehydrated form. When it gets the moisture in it, that's when you need to start feeding it and doing more with it. Um, but you can keep sourdough starter for decades upon decades.
Hmm.
There's some that are like 30, 40 years old.
Okay, I often wondered about that because I hear some people say, "Oh, we have a starter that's like 50 years old." So theoretically, if you had a starter, and let's say you're going out of town or you're going to be away from it for a while, you could dehydrate some, put it aside, and then come back and reinvigorate it later. Then, just
Yeah,
from the
you can
sound of
do
it.
that. Or if you don't want to go through the dehydration process, you can also put it in your fridge, and the cold will slow down the fermentation process, and it will let you keep it there for a prolonged time without having to feed it or do anything with it without it going bad.
Okay. Well, this right here is what I have from you. I don't know how much this is. It feels like about a half a cup just from looking at it. Let me measure it out. So how much do I need to get going with this?
Whatever, when you measure that out, take half of what's in there.
Okay, that's a half a cup.
Okay, so use 1/4 cup of the sourdough starter.
All right. All right. Let's just get situated. That's what the sourdough starter looks like. And that's a half a cup. Grab a quarter cup. All right. So I'm going to pour off a quarter cup of that. What makes a sourdough starter different from store-bought yeast?
So store-bought yeast is usually made with one strand of yeast. I was gonna try to pronounce the yeast name, but it's beyond what I can pronounce if I'm being honest. But it's usually one type of yeast, whereas sourdough starter is it's made by the wild yeast that you find on the wheat that the flour's made out of.
Hmm.
And it also has lactobacilli bacteria, which is naturally occurring. And on top of that, atop of the wild yeast, it's multiple strains of yeast. There's health benefits between sourdough and commercial yeast. The benefits that I've written down right now are it helps with nutrition absorption,
Hmm.
which increases the bioavailability of nutrients like iron, zinc, magnesium, and vitamin B. It controls blood sugar. So the fermentation process helps break down the gluten network and it helps break down some of the sugars.
Hmm.
Because that's what actually sourdough starter thrives on is the sugars and the yeast. That's what makes the yeast. It's kind of all the food, so it's breaking down that sugar in the flour and through all the process, and it will make even your whole meal. If you eat like a sourdough piece of bread, it'll take that whole meal and lower the glycemic index.
Hmm.
And then it also has healthy gut health bacteria. That's the um, lactobacilli bacteria. It's really good for your gut health, which
Okay.
is extremely important. And the acidity also inhibits the growth of mold, so it will actually last longer without preservatives.
Okay. So and so with this starter here that I got right now, okay, so I
Yeah.
can put this in the jar.
Yeah.
And it's my quarter cup. Alrighty. How much water?
We are going to do just a little bit of water, just to kind of rehydrate it. So take about half of what you did for that cup, like half of 1/4.
Oh, what type of one fourth? Give me the line.
Uh, it'd be like one, I think like 1/8 or something, but you can just do a little bit to
Okay,
just to get that starter wet. We're just rehydrating it right now. We're not making the actual starter process.
okay. So as far as just here we go. I'm just getting the water going on it.
Yep.
All right. Now I have a spoon here. Do I need to stir it around?
Yeah.
Okay. What about you mentioned that it eats the sugars and stuff like that. Should I be boosting it with any kind of sugar?
Uh, you can add a little bit of honey or agave to the mix to kind of give it that extra boost. Some people can do that. They call it a swift or a sweet swift starter is what they use that for, but that's more for like cinnamon rolls and pastries because it does make it a little bit sweeter. So if you use it
Okay.
for bread, it'll just be a little bit of a sweeter bread versus a sour bread.
Okay. So it's not going to eat up enough of the sugar to kind of make it savory, is what
No,
it
it
sounds like.
yeah, it still makes it a little bit on the sweeter side.
Okay. Well, I'll omit it on this one. Maybe I'll do whenever I do something sweet or cinnamon rolls or something. So it looks like it's coming together. Uh, how much do you stir, or is this enough?
That's enough for
Okay.
stirring.
All right. So what's the process now next for this piece?
For that one, you want to add that probably with the 1/4 cup starter and then the half of that of water, that probably puts you about 3/4 of or probably about a half a cup of starter.
Hmm.
So if you want to add a half a cup of flour into it,
Okay. I can do that now.
yeah.
Half a cup flour. You know what? Trying not to make a mess. So I'm just going to spoon some of this out here. Okay. Stir it around.
You might want to add a little bit of water into it just so it's not super clumpy,
Okay.
which you can add just a little bit less than half a cup.
Okay. Feels about right.
Once you start mixing this and start doing it yourself, you kind of get used to what you want your starter to look like. And personally, for myself, I don't always measure it. I just kind of have a basis of what I want it to look like.
How's that looking?
You can add maybe a spoonful of flour in there. We want it just a little bit thicker.
Okay. Like that?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay. All right. Okay, so what's the next step on this? I guess this is done for now.
Yeah, so one thing that I would do is if you have a rubber spatula is scrape down the sides just so you have an accurate reading of where your starter is. Um, and then if you have a rubber band, you can use a rubber band to mark where your starter started at so you know if it doubled or not.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay. I do have that. Cool. I bought enough. Okay, so I brought this rubber band here, and
And you just want to line it up to where the starter hits.
okay. Uh, okay. So
And
there's my
then
star.
you just put the cheesecloth over top of it, put a rubber band on that, and then you're good.
Alrighty. Mm. Oh, I had. There we go. Cheesecloth, rubber band. Bloop.
You want to keep this in a semi-warm area. I know in my house we keep it about 65, and right now it takes forever for my stuff to rise. So I try to keep my starter somewhere where it might be warmer, like 72 to 74 degrees is like a sweet spot.
I think I might have a
Um,
spot near the oven. Tends to
okay.
keep a little bit warmer over there from cooking and such. All right, so that's this one.
Yes, if
Uh,
that area doesn't work, you can always put it in the oven with the light on, but keep the door cracked because with the door shut, it'll keep it too hot.
okay, so it's not like proofing because do I still have that? We had to recently change out our oven, and you know what? I don't think this one has a proofer. That's disappointing. Anyway, because it used to be basically it was 90 degrees. It would put 90 degrees in there, and
Okay.
you could put something, you could put bread and things to rise without baking it. So if I do it at 90 degrees, is that going to be too hot, or just am I leaving it alone to do on its own?
Uh, 90 degrees, in my opinion, is a little too high. It'll make it ferment really fast and you'll miss the peak spot of where you want to use it. That's
Okay.
what I found anyways. That's why I recommend when you use the oven light to crack it because I tempered mine what it would be at with a door shut and it gets over 100 degrees.
Oh, okay.
So it just keeps it warm and then the door keeps it with it cracked. It just gives it some airflow so it's not so warm.
Well, this one's good. I'm going
Yep.
to I'll set that one aside. And then as far as like next steps on this one is how often do I have to feed this?
That one I would feed every 12 hours. So if you can around 11 o'clock tonight, if not, you can feed it right before you go to bed. It doesn't have to be exactly 12 hours,
Hmm.
but you would just feed, I'd say discard half and then feed the same measurements that we did this time around.
Okay. You're gonna discard half of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
If not, you'll have an overabundance of starter and you're going to waste a lot of flour trying to keep up with uh the amounts that you need.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. All righty. So 11 o'clock tonight, I will put this on. And then let's get the second one going. This one I'm starting from scratch with unbleached yeast. I mean, excuse me, unbleached flour. And you had mentioned why the unbleached flour versus using bleached flour?
So if you use bleached flour, the bleaching process gets rid of all the bacteria inside of the flour that we're using. So it's not going to rise or do what it needs to do to make the yeast because the
Oh,
bacteria breaks down the sugars and then the sugar creates carbon dioxide, which releases, and that's what we get the rise out of.
okay. I just wanted to rinse my thing off. Okay, so how much flour am I using?
For this one, you want to start off very minimal. So I always recommend doing like 3 spoonfuls of flour.
Okay. Ooh, is that good or is that too much?
That's good.
Okay. One, two, three. Okay.
And then I would just add water into it to get kind of the same consistency we did with the other one.
Okay. Stir it up. A bit more. That feels about right. What do you
Yep,
think?
that looks perfect.
Okay, so I'm scraping this down too, right?
Yep.
All right. Nice little bit. One second. I want to rinse my thing off. I don't want to upset the new sourdough with the other sourdough. Okay. Just get that off the spoon a little. Uh, scrape it down, scrape it down, scrape it down. Okay. Scrape down and ready to go. So another rubber band to mark it, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. And as far as I put the top on for this one as well too.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we'll stick with the same feeding schedule as the other one, every 12 hours at
Okay.
first. With this one, we won't discard anything at first. That's why we started with such a low amount. We'll just go in with the same measurements.
Okay.
And then the following feed from that one we'll discard and go with a little bit more of a true measurements of like half a cup and 1/4 cup water, so forth.
Okay. Okay. So as far as the discards, it sounds like we're getting rid of some of this starter and this yeast as it grows. So
Yeah.
what's some creative ways that I can do something with that versus just throwing it in the trash? Is there anything that you do with your discards?
So discard is very versatile. One thing that I do want to point out when you start your first flour, like your uh the new starter,
Mhm.
when we discard, we don't want to use that discard until our starter's a week old. So it has that time to build more of the good beneficial bacteria versus the bad bacteria.
Okay. All right.
Um,
So the initials, you just leave it alone. It's just the process.
yeah.
Okay.
When you discard the stuff that I sent you, you can use that in different recipes. I make pizza crust. You can make brownies, pancakes, waffles, crackers, biscuits, dumplings. I use it in a rye to make my gravy or a roux to make my gravy.
Hmm.
You can bread chicken. You can feed it to your chickens. It's beneficial for the chickens the way it is for us. It's good bacteria for their crop and whatnot.
Hmm.
Um, it's pretty much endless what you can do with the starter. I've seen where some people will actually water it down and water their plants with it
Oh
because it has
yeah.
beneficial stuff inside of it that helps plants grow. I haven't dug deep into that one, but it's something that kind of has my interest peaked a little bit.
I just thought about waffles, making like waffles with it.
Yeah, waffles, there's a recipe that I found that uses primarily just discard and butter, and it makes it such a crispy, like flavorful, airy waffle. It's delicious.
Well, put me on the list for that one. I'll try that one. Okay, so this one sounds like we're done for the moment.
Yep.
I'm going to put these in some warm spots, set my reminders to feed these jokers today or this evening, and then I'm going to feed them again tomorrow, right? At 11, about the
Yes.
same. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be about the same time.
Okay. And just one reminder, how many days am I going to be doing that to kind of keep it going?
For my starter, it should only take probably 3 or 4 feeds, give or take. A lot of the times with sourdough starter, it depends on your environment too, on just how what types of stuff you have in your air versus what's in my air, because there's yeast and other stuff in the air that it accumulates from being open to the elements and whatnot. So your elements could be different than my elements here in Ohio.
Hmm.
Um, Humidity changes a couple things too, depending on if it's warmer or colder in your house. So a lot of it is just kind of feeling it out. So it could take 2 days, it could take 3 days. Your starter, the new one, you might get what's called a false rise after 3 days, but I recommend to keep doing it for about a week just to kind of keep building that up. And then it'll hit kind of like a plateau where it won't want to do anything.
Hmm.
And then you have to kind of fight through that. Where it's just like, why isn't my starter doing anything? Why is it just not, am I messing it up? That's like a lot of people, they always ask me, what am I messing up? And I just have to remind them, just keep feeding it, just keep with the process.
Okay. All right. Well, I will check back in with you later in the week and let you know how it's been going. And hopefully next week I'll be having some pizza dough or whatever it is I'm going to make from out of this. But I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to it. Thank you very much for
no
teaching
problem.
me about what we're doing here. And one more look, I've got to name them.
Yes.
This used to be, I thought I had the name Bread Pit, but I was like, I named an old one that. So I'm going to come up with a couple more ready names for these jokers and look, and I'll let you know what they're called once I figure it out. But thank you. Hold on, let me
Yep,
just say thank you again to your face,
no problem.
and appreciate you sharing this knowledge with me.
Yep.
So,
Just to
mhm.
give you a little, my starter, if you need a little bit of a help with
Mhm.
names, my starter is Little Yeasty, is her name.
Well, I hope she lives up to it because I'm looking forward to having a taste. Uh,
Yep,
anyway, you have a wonderful day and take care. Thank you.
me too.
12 hours later.
All right, it's feeding time for my two little sourdoughs here, sourdough starters. Tom crust, this is what I got from Dorothy, and this is my own Oprah Windflower. So let me go ahead and get these things fed here. All right, this is my second feeding. So this is what it's looking like right now inside there. No bubbles as of yet, but definitely mixed together. So I gotta take half of this out and discard it. All right. Oof. Goodness, a scoop ought to do me. There we go. Just want to look down in that. Is that about right? Okay, that feels about half. Okay. All right. Now we just add in our flour. Half a cup again. Slide this back on. Sourdough pizza. Okay, here we go. Nice flavor. It holds up well. You can taste the sourness. Need some of that crust. Tastes good. It's not tasting the strong of sourness, but I smell it more than I taste it. That's really good.